Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I guess I'll fill that role. Welcome to the Daily Power Parsha. It is great to see you all. Today we are going to begin our brand new Torah portion, which is called Ki Teitzei, and there are so many interesting themes here that I want to share with you. So without further ado, let me share my screen with you. Can you see my screen? Yes? Okay. Awesome. So let's do this. Ki Teitzei. Today is Monday, so we're going to cover readings 1 and 2, and we'll see how much we can get through. Okay, so we start with Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse number 10, and again, remember the context. Moses is speaking to the people shortly before his passing, the last days or weeks before his passing, and he's sharing with them communal advice and guidance. And we ended last week's Torah portion by talking about the rules of war, how to go to war in an ethical way. We talked about not cutting down the fruit trees while in battle and other interesting laws. And here we have the idea of taking captives. Taking captives. Chapter 21, verse number 10. If you go out to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God will deliver him into your hands, and you take his captives, and you see among the captives a beautiful woman, and you desire her. So the Torah says you may take her for yourself as a wife. Okay, so this is basically someone who is captured. So you're victorious in battle, and now you've taken a captive, and you see a beautiful woman, and now you want to marry her. The Torah says, you shall bring her into your home, and she shall shave her head and let her nails grow. And she shall remove the garment of her captivity from upon herself and stay in your house and weep for her father and her mother for a full month. After that, you may be intimate with her and possess her, whatever, have her, and she'll be as a wife for you. What is that, Hebrew? Va'alta. Now, it means then you'll be her husband. That's a weird translation. And she'll be a wife to you, for you. Now, what's interesting here is the following. At a time, and I would say even today, at a time when, in times of war, pretty much everything goes, the Torah puts a moral condition on taking a wife, right, from the captives. The Torah says, before you marry her, right, you have to let her stay in your house for a full month, shave her hair, let her nails grow. In other words, see her not at first glance when you saw her and you're like, oh, let me take her as a wife, but let her not look so adorned, right? And let her see her in her state of mourning for her father and mother, and then you'll see in a month's time if you still want to marry her. In other words, the Torah puts kind of a barrier between what an army, what a soldier can do, or between what they want to do and what they can do. Does that make sense? The Torah is basically putting a barrier in between this idea of just taking a woman in captivity in war and doing whatever you want with her. So this is putting a precondition, 30 days, etc. And after that, take care of her for 30 days. If you really want to marry her, then we'll have a conversation about it. But there's nothing that happens immediately, and there's no messing around. So that is the opening mitzvah of this Torah portion. Again, throughout history, wars have been very ugly, and lots of things have happened in the context of war that has been, maybe not so kosher. The Torah here is putting a layer of morality and a layer of right and wrong on top of this scenario. One thing I want to mention right at the beginning, this is not related to the mitzvah of it's called Eshes Yefas Toar, the beautiful woman that was taken into captivity, but not related to that. The opening verse talks about in general going out to war against your enemies. But if you look at the Hebrew, it's not against your enemies. The Hebrew word is al, which means on top of or above. And here the Torah gives us a perspective, and that is when we go, and this is not only fighting, an ancient war back in the land of Israel. We're talking about all the battles that we have, the inner battles, the everyday battles, the battles within ourselves against our base temptations. The Torah is telling us that the only way we'll be victorious is if we know that we can overcome the temptation, we can overcome the enemy, the battle, etc. If we think that we're in a weaker position or we're not going to be able to overcome, then we're not going to be able to overcome. The only time we'll be victorious is when we have the perspective that we are al oivecha, that we're above our enemies, and then indeed God will help us be victorious. So that's a general comment, not related to the mitzvah that follows regarding the woman taken in captivity. So again, so far we have two lessons. Number one, let's start with the second one that I mentioned first. So first lesson is, whenever we face a challenge, we have to be positive, we have to have confidence, we have to be able to see and perceive the victory that we wish to achieve. If you can't imagine it, then you can't create it. So that's the first point. Second point is, if you take a woman captive in the context of battle, there are rules and regulations, and there are strings attached, and it's not so simple. And this is the Torah's way of putting a moral check and balance on what usually armies take for granted, what happens in war kind of automatically without much thought. The Torah says, no, that's not okay, and this is going to be the protocol. Okay. Now let's take a look at verse 14. And what will happen? And it will be, if you do not desire her, if after a month's time and all of those other things, if now on second thought you don't want to marry her, then you shall send her away wherever she wishes. In other words, she has to be sent away absolutely free, without any strings attached. But you shall not sell her for money. You shall not keep her as a servant, because you have afflicted her. So you can't keep her to work for you. If you don't want to marry her, then that's it. It's done. The only context that this is a kosher arrangement is if you want to marry her and take care of her as your wife. If after 30 days you really want to marry her, then you can be with her. Otherwise, done. No keeping her as a slave, as a servant, as a maidservant, nothing. No selling her, God for nothing. Nothing. She's not yours. Not yours to keep. It's not property. It's a human being. So again, if you want to marry her and whatever, and she wants to marry you, it's fine. But otherwise, no deal, no dice, no nothing. Again, this runs contrary to the way wars were fought, to the way people behaved for thousands of years. And I would imagine even till today that when wars are fought, stuff happens. So the bottom line is, Torah holds us to a higher standard, even in times of war. Okay, now let's talk about the laws of inheritance. Okay, we're switching gears now to talk about the laws of inheritance. Now, I should mention as an introduction to this, Torah law does not prohibit a man from having more than one wife. Now, in rabbinic law, this has been prohibited, but Torah law theoretically keeps it open as a possibility. Why? I could only speculate why. I've seen some interesting speculation why, but I don't know that I'm satisfied with the speculation. The bottom line is, Torah does not outlaw it. The rabbis did, but Torah doesn't. Okay, so that's the context for this verse. I mean, it's not the context, but that's a context for this teaching. Verse 15. If a man has two wives, one beloved and the other despised, and they both bear him sons, the beloved one and the despised one, and the firstborn son is from the despised one. Now, I know what you're asking. Well, if she's despised, then why is he married to her? I don't know. This is the Torah scenario. So the guy has two wives. One he loves, one he not so much. Each have a son, and the son of the one that's not loved so much, that's the bechar, that's the firstborn. So look what the Torah says. Then it will be on the day the husband bequeaths his property to his sons, in other words, the inheritance after he passes away, that he will not be able to give the son of the beloved wife birthright precedence over the son of the despised wife, the real firstborn son. In other words, you can't say, well, I love this one more, I'm going to give this one the firstborn rights or the double portion. No, that's not how it works. Rather, he must acknowledge the real firstborn, the son of the despised wife, and give him a double share in all that he possesses. By the way, that's Jewish law. You give the firstborn double the share. You hear that, Nassim? My firstborn is in the other room. He's very excited about this. So you give the firstborn the double share, and everyone else gets to split the rest. So you can't say, well, I don't really love the mother of the firstborn, so therefore I'm going to give the other kid the double portion. No, that's not valid. So you must acknowledge the firstborn, the son of the despised wife, and give him a double share in all that he possesses. Why? Because this firstborn son, is the first of his strength. Then he has the birthright entitlement. In other words, he's firstborn. That's it. You can't undo that. It is what it is. So what's interesting here is, again, we have the Torah kind of imposing a moral code and an ethical code. Yeah, you want to take the woman in battle and captivity and do whatever you want with her. No. You want to choose which son you give the double portion to as an inheritance. No. The Torah says no. There's a value system. There's a system of morality and ethics, and you're not going to go and bypass that just because you feel like it. That's not how it works. The Torah says there's a code. A woman deserves the right to engage with her in a dignified manner, and the son, the firstborn son, has a right to the firstborn share. All right, moving on. Verse 18. This is a very interesting set of laws, or law. It's called the Ben Sorer Umored. It's the wayward and rebellious son. Nasin, it's not about you, the firstborn. And by the way, I love you. Don't worry, nothing to worry about. So the Torah here talks about the wayward and rebellious son. Take a look at this. Verse 18. If a man has a wayward and rebellious son who does not obey his father or his mother, and they chasten him, I think that's how you pronounce it, maybe not, and he still does not listen to them, so his father, Chasten. They were chasing him away. All right. So they chasten him, and he still does not listen to them. So his father and his mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of the city, to the gate of his place. And they shall say to the elders of the city, this son of ours is wayward and rebellious. He does not obey us. He's a glutton and a guzzler. It's wild. All right. And all the men of his city shall pelt him to death with stones. Very harsh. And he shall die. So shall you clear out the evil from among you, and all Israel will listen in fear. Very interesting. When I say interesting, very bizarre. I'll just say bizarre. Laws over here regarding the wayward and rebellious son. So, look, the commentaries point out that here's a young man. First of all, it's not because you told your kid to clean his room and he didn't. That's it. To the gates, to the elders. We're done. Told you twice. Forget it. We're out of here. No, that's not what's going on. This is a very specific pattern of rebellious behavior. Very specific pattern of criminal behavior. We're talking about someone who is a very specific age. The Talmud tells us exactly what age this child is. Very specific age, very specific pattern of behavior, with theft and meat and wine underage, a whole step-by-step process of errant behavior, and it's then that this would apply, and it's not even would apply. It's the conditions are so exacting for this to ever have occurred. The Talmud says it basically never occurred. Not only did it never occur, it couldn't have occurred based on how specific it was. In fact, to give you one example of the Talmud's conditions, it says that this child is someone who does not obey his father or his mother. That's not exactly what it says. What it says in the Hebrew is Einenu shomea b'kol aviv u'b'kol imo, that he doesn't listen to the voice of his father and the voice of his mother. The fact that the Torah says voice twice, b'kol aviv u'b'kol imo, the voice of his father, the voice of his mother, means that their voices have to sound the same. The only time this is valid is if the father's voice and the mother's voice sound identical. They sound identical. In a wild, a crazy scenario where the father and mother's voices would actually sound the same. Which husband and father and mother, the voice sounds the same, right? But that's what the Talmud says. Based on the specific wording of the Torah, it has to be that specific scenario. I'm just giving you one example where that shows how rare, if not impossible, this scenario is to actually have transpired. But what's the point? The point is, look, if you ever need to get your kid in line, you just pull out Deuteronomy 21. Yeah, it's 21, verses 18 through 21. And you say, look, no fooling around, Junior. Like, no messing around. No, but all jokes aside, look, it tells us about the importance of really what the Talmud, the way the Talmud explains it, the pattern of behavior is setting up for a more egregious act, like the act of murder. So there's a very specific pattern of negative behavior. The Talmud says that's going to lead to murder, and therefore we stop it in its tracks. And again, without this ever having transpired, the message for us is we have to pay attention to we have to notice things. We have to pay attention and notice, and obviously not to the extent over here of verse 21 of the outcome, but it means whether it's our own kids, whether it's our community, when we see something getting to a breaking point, getting past a certain line, we should step in, and we shouldn't just let things slide and ignore it. We should step in and make changes and make sure that things don't get to a negative place. Okay. All right. So that is that. Hey Donna, welcome. Let's actually welcome everybody. Make sure that everybody got welcome. Donna, welcome. Ray, welcome. Matt, welcome. Mark, welcome. Joy, welcome. And then I guess I'll welcome myself. Hey. Okay, so that is that. I wonder if there's any interesting Rashis. Let's see Rashi on the Ben Sora Mara. Oh yeah, so all right, whatever. Not whatever, but the Rashi in question, or the Rashi in reference, would be Rashi in verse 18. He has to be warned, and has to steal money from his father, consume at least 1 tartamar weight of meat, drink at the same meal half a log of wine, and the execution happens on account of what we perceive is going to eventually come. And somebody might say, well, how do you know what's going to happen? All right, that's why this never happened. This case never actually happened. But the point is still the point. The point is that, as I said before, we shouldn't let things get to a place of, where it's past repair. We should stop negativity in its tracks in a healthy fashion. Okay. Wow. Just in case it wasn't morbid enough. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 22. Here we go. If a man commits a sin for which he is sentenced to death, and he is put to death, which, by the way, in general is a very rare occurrence, was a very rare occurrence, then you shall hang him on a pole. So, execution, then they would publicly do some sort of demonstration of the person who died. But you shall not leave his body in the pole overnight. Rather, you shall bury him on that same day. So they would put him up very quickly and then take him down. For a hanging human corpse is a blasphemy of God, and you shall not defile your land, which the Lord your God has given you as an inheritance. Basically, the commentators explain, maybe even Rashi. No. The commentators explain that the human being is created in the image of God. And since the human being is created in the image of God, you don't put a human being created in the image of God in a deceased state like that. So why do you do it in the first place? You do it just to, certain things were meant to have some sort of public knowledge about it. This is before newspapers, before Twitter. So that was the way to get the word out about the sentence for this person. Okay, but you do it very quickly, and then you take the person down. The idea is you even respect the body, you even respect the body of this person who did something so terrible that they were sentenced to death. And again, that was something that was very, very, very rare in ancient Israel. Okay, moving on to greener pastures and more pleasant conversations. Enough about criminal activity. Deuteronomy chapter 22 talks about animals. You shall not see your brother's ox or sheep straying and ignore them. Rather, you shall return them to your brother. You know what that means? It means if you see the ox or sheep of your neighbor that got lost and is just straying, don't turn a blind eye. Rather, return the animals to your brother. So it's kind of like, again, responsibility. What's our responsibility to our neighbor? Well, a person could say, it's not my problem. Like, I'm busy. I have my own stuff to deal with. I have my own sheep. I mean, my own oxen to take care of. What, I need to chase this guy's sheep? Are you kidding me? What do I look like? Bored? Right? You're driving down the highway. You see somebody's car is on the side of the road. I need this in my life. I got to go somewhere. The Torah says we have to take responsibility for our friend. We have to help out each other. Okay, but if your brother is not near you, or if you do not know him, so what happens if now you see an ox or sheep, but you don't know whose it is? So then you shall bring it into your house, and it shall be with you until your brother seeks it out, whereupon you shall return it to him. This is another layer of responsibility. So again, first level of responsibility is returning the lost sheep or ox to your friend. The second one is you have to house it and feed it until you get contact with whoever is the owner, and then you should return it to him. So shall you do with his donkey, and so shall you do with his garment, and so shall you do with any lost article of your brother, which he has lost and you have found. You shall not ignore it. This is, in fact, the contents of almost an entire tractate of the Talmud, which talks about not a tractate, a chapter, the Talmud, which talks about the laws of returning lost items. You find something, you're walking down the street, and you find you find something. So what do you do with it? Finders keepers? Not so simple. Not so simple. If there's a way to identify the owner, the short of it is, it's a very complicated topic or very involved topic of law, Jewish law. The short of it is, if there's a way to identify the owner, and you can reasonably assume that the owner still maintains hope of getting it back, then you have an obligation to take it in, to not leave it there, to take it, and to seek out the owner and try to give it back and try to reconnect it with the owner. Okay, again, it's part of the moral code of Torah, which is to help out each other. Verse number 4, you shall not see your brother's donkey or his ox fallen under his load on the road and ignore them. Rather, you shall pick up the load with him. So again, maybe this is more of like the stalled car on the side of the road. If you see the animal that's crouching, it's like it's fallen underneath its load, you have to have Rahmanas on the animal and the owner. Help the guy pick up the load. All right. Here we have an interesting law, verse 5. I don't know that I'm going to comment too much on this, but verse 5, a man's attire shall not be on a woman, nor may a man wear a woman's garment, because whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord your God. Okay. This is about dressing in other garments. Next, verse 6. If a bird's nest chances before you on the road, on any tree, or on the ground, and it contains fledglings or eggs, if the mother is sitting upon the fledglings or upon the eggs, you shall not take the mother upon the young. So it's cruel to take the eggs with the mother still there, the mother bird. Rather, verse 7, you shall send away the mother, and then you may take the young for yourself, in order that it should be good for you, and you shall lengthen your days. This is called shiluch hakan, which is sending away the mother bird in order to take the eggs. And the Torah says, if you do this, then you will live many, many long days. In other words, this is a mitzvah that comes with long life. And our sages say, if such a simple mitzvah, just sending away the mother bird, taking the eggs, if such a simple mitzvah gets you such a reward, can you imagine a more complicated mitzvah, a mitzvah that requires a little bit more effort? So it's a beautiful, beautiful lesson that we can learn from this. A few things that I want to mention regarding your brother's ox or sheep straying or falling under its load. These things are not only literally, but they also have a spiritual meaning. And that is, each one of us has an inner animal. Kabbalah talks about the animal soul, nefesh habahamis. We each have an ox or a sheep inside. Some people have an ox, very destructive inside. Some people have more of a sheep. Some people have a goat. Some people have, a lamb, whatever, different types of animal souls, different types of personalities. But it all refers to the lower, more instinctive personality, not the divine personality. We have a godly soul and an animal soul. Well, what happens when we see a person's animal soul out of control? We notice a person, a friend, a neighbor, an acquaintance, somebody whose animal soul has gotten the better of them, and they start sinking into negative behavior. The Torah says don't ignore it. Don't turn a blind eye. Don't say it's not my problem, I got my own stuff to deal with. We need to be there with our brother or sister. We need to help a person out and help them gain control. This is the Torah's message regarding, let's say, intervention or whatever it is. The bottom line is if somebody needs help, it's all of our responsibilities to help them with the help they need and not turn a blind eye. Okay, so this takes us to the end of today's session. We did 2 readings, a lot of wild themes. We started off by talking about the rules of war and the morality of prisoners of war. And in battle and war, there's no free license to do with whoever you want, to do whatever you want. So if you find a woman in captivity, or you take a woman in captivity in war, you can't just do whatever you want. If you want to marry her, okay, it's going to take 30 days. So after a protocol, you see her in her true light seer as a person, as a human being, who's mourning her state of captivity, and then see if you really want to marry her and take care of her as your wife, and then you'll make the decision. If not, then you have to send her away and send her free. No strings attached. That was the first thing. So again, Torah's moral code. We spoke about a father who wants to play favorites. Oh, I love my second-born son before my firstborn son. No, you have to give the firstborn son the double portion. You can't fool around. We spoke about the rebellious son and the idea of noticing behavior that is leaning toward a certain way before it gets to a breaking point. We spoke about, in the context of public hanging, we spoke about, counterintuitively, we spoke about the value of the human body and how we're created in the image of God, and that applies also to the body. And therefore, we can't debase or disgrace the body. Rather, the body needs to be, even in case of a capital crime, the body has to be buried pretty much right away. Then again, we spoke about helping out our brother, sister. If you see the ox or sheep, return it to them. That has a spiritual meaning as well. Somebody's animal soul is getting the better of them. Help them out. Speak with them. Counsel, mentor, whatever it is. Be there for the other person. If you see the animal struggling, help them out. We spoke about returning lost items, mitzvah hashavas haveda, returning lost items, and the mitzvah of sending away the mother bird, having compassion on a mother, and not separating her from the eggs while she's still there, which would be very mean and cruel, and how that mitzvah brings with it long life. Okay, that's it for today. Hope that made sense. Hope it resonated. Hope at least some of the mitzvot made sense. If not all of them. I mean, look, are we going to understand the full depth of Torah? Even on a good day, no. Let alone, when I say good day, even when it's straightforward, we don't understand the full measure. Especially when you have certain laws that are a little bit more cryptic. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed. So quick announcement tonight is the mystery of Hebrew numerology, lesson 3, third and final lesson of numerology. We'll speak about the numerology of the month of Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Chanukah, Shabbat, and Joseph. A lot of numerology to talk about. Donna, go ahead. Sorry, unmute.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think up to now we've just taken words and analyzed the letters, right, and attributed numbers and then analyzed that. Are we going to at all, is part of numerology, gematria, that if you see a number, can you go that way? Can you decide what that number represents?
Yeah, so we can talk about that tonight. Remind me if I don't talk about it. Remind me, and we can explore that for a little bit. Great question. So that's tonight. Tomorrow night is Jewish Course of Why, and an email is going to go out very shortly about our upcoming. One second. Next Monday night is our jewelry workshop, Gemstones and Kabbalah, which is going to be very exciting. We have the gemstones. I've sent out already multiple packets to those that are out of town. So we've mailed them out, and people are picking them up. So if you're not in on it yet, get in on it. So we're all get in while the getting's good. Okay.
Make gifts. Could be gifts.
Yes, and they're gifts. Yes, right, for you or to gift. And then finally, an email is going to go out in just a few minutes, hopefully, with information about our upcoming virtual gala dinner, which is going to include dinner gourmet catered dinner delivered to your home, plus an online program featuring international stars. This is going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for more news and information as it breaks. Stay tuned to the Intown Jewish Academy channel whenever good news is to be found. All right, that's it for today. Thank you very much. Tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel. Always a pleasure to study together. And, oh, I see a chat. Yes, hanging person is an insult of God. Right, correct. We don't want to insult God. We don't want to disgrace God in any way. So why hang in the first place? Again, I guess that was a way to get the message out that a person was executed, but you pull him down right away and you honor the body and not insult. All right. We'll see you soon. Take care, everyone. Bye, all.
Thank you.
Pleasure.